I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Yes, I know who I am.
Well, Kiki, we are back in the TARDIS one last time this year. Yes, we did our 60th anniversary retrospective all through the year, but we have one more thing left to do. There's one thing we have yet to do, and that is we have not talked about a Doctor Who Christmas episode yet. Because what is Christmas without Doctor Who?
It's really the only thing I look forward to at Christmas.
I was going to say, not everybody has the greatest relationship with Christmas, and for some people, yes, the Doctor Who Christmas episode is the shining light of the holiday season, something that we've kind of been denied for the last few years because Chris Chibnall and the BBC decided, we'll put it on New Year's. No one will know the difference.
I will know, Chibnall. I will know.
So yeah, the Doctor Who Christmas special dates all the way back to the William Hartnell era. So yeah, all the way back in 1965, during the broadcast of the Daleks Master Plan, one of the episodes was going to be aired on Christmas. So they did a special Christmas episode called The Feast of Stephen. Sadly, that is one of the episodes that has been junked and will likely never see the light of day again. But that is the famous episode where William Hartnell at the end of the episode wishes his companions Merry Christmas, looks to the camera and says, "And I'm Happy Christmas to all of you at home." If you've ever seen that, heard that soundbite or seen that picture, that's where it's from. And that is really the only Christmas episode of the entire classic era. They've never done another Christmas episode, which is really weird. That is until we get to the revival era of Doctor Who, which is where we're going to be this week, because we are getting a brand new Doctor Who Christmas special. It will be the first full adventure for a brand new Doctor. And we decided to go all the way back to the last time this happened, the first full adventure of a brand new Doctor that just regenerated. We are going back to 2005, The Christmas Invasion. Yeah, it's kind of fun going back to the beginning of the David Tennant era as we sit here, as we said goodbye to David Tennant for the second time. Maybe?
Okay, let's stop right there.
All right.
We are recording this after the Giggle has aired, and we are going to do our best to not give any spoilers, but there may be some if you know, you know. So there's your warning. If you're super touchy about it, flip it off, go watch the Giggle over on Disney Plus and come back to us. But we're gonna save our thoughts on the Giggle for a different time, maybe. But I will say, and we were talking about this off mic, there are a lot of things from this episode that come back in the Giggle.
Yeah.
That I don't think we realized until we did the rewatch. Yeah. After having seen the Giggle. Mm-hmm. And so there may be some times when talking about this episode where we might say, and this came back full circle in the Giggle. So there might be some times where if it's just, if you know, you know, but we're going to try to stay away from any commentary on the Giggle or any major spoilers. So, but, you know, listen at your own risk. We're going to do our best.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the idea of a Doctor Who Christmas episode, I'll throw it to you, Kiki. When you heard that David Tennant's first episode of Doctor Who was going to be a Christmas episode.
I mean, it was something for me to do on Christmas.
Did this even air on Christmas in the States?
It did. Well, I mean, it did not air on Christmas in the States, I don't think, but I watched it on Christmas in the States, I think.
Completely legal.
Yeah, okay, according to what I'm finding online, it did not air on BBC America until 2007, but I believe it was coming on Sci-Fi Channel in 2005.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey everyone, this is Tuesday editing the podcast, and I just came in here as I'm editing to kind of clarify some things. The Christmas Invasion did air on the Sci-Fi Channel on September 29th, 2006, not 2005. Just correcting that, and as Kiki would say, it didn't air on BBC America until 2007. Yeah, just to clarify.
Now, back to our show.
As I said, now watching the episode the same day as the UK airing is such a luxury. We did not have that in 2005. What I do remember is that when they made the big announcement that this was going to air in the States, they made a deal. They made a big deal about having scenes not part of the original UK broadcast. And what they meant by that, what that ended up meaning, was they actually aired an extended version of the Christmas Invasion with the Children in Need special airing before it. It'd be first time that's ever happened. First time and only time that's happened where they've aired the Children in Need special in the States on television. So you got this extended intro where it's just this Children in Need special, and we'll get to it in a minute, and it going directly into the Christmas Invasion.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that the Children in Need special actually really does need to be part of the Christmas Invasion because it adds context that even if you know how regeneration works, and remember this was the first regeneration of the new era, so this was letting a new generation of viewers know what is going on here. Okay? But even if you understand regeneration as a concept, the Children in Need special is some really amazing character building for both Rose and the Doctor.
And since the last episode prior to this ended with them saying, let's go to Barcelona, we have to find a way to get them to not go to Barcelona and go back to London.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if you just watch the official episodes, okay? The official episode in Parting of the Ways has the regeneration, and David Tennant shows up and he says, oh, let's go to Barcelona. And then it ends. And then if the next thing you see is the Christmas Invasion, the Christmas Invasion shows up with the Doctor as David Tennant stumbling out of the TARDIS in London next to Rose's council estate and stumbling into the arms of Jackie and Mickey and saying Merry Christmas and passing out. And there's the question, if you don't see that Children in Need special, of like, what happened to Barcelona? And what happened to the doctor? Yeah, so I mean, you wanna talk about the Children in Need special and what happened to the doctor?
Yeah, so let's get into it. Children in Need. While this is just listed as Doctor Who Children in Need special, it has been given the name Born Again by, I believe, fans. I believe the TARDIS wiki lists it. The TARDIS wiki lists it under the name Born Again. So we pick up immediately after the last episode.
They even play in the special the regeneration sequence.
You get a short recap of Parting of the Ways. You get the regeneration sequence, Barcelona, and then there's David Tennant still in Christopher Eccleston's clothes saying, "What do you think, Rose? How do I look?" And Rose is like, "What the hell is going on? Who are you? Where's the doctor? Bring him back."
I love how smart Rose is here, and that she thinks that it's like a teleporter or nanogene's gone wrong, or she lists all these things it could be because she's seen all these things, but she's never seen regeneration before, and that's a step too far for her brain.
I mean, she's just spent the last, as far as we know, at least 1 year traveling with the doctor. So she's seen a lot of things. So she can try to figure out what's going on. Who are you? What did you do with the doctor? Did you transport him away? Are you a nanogene clone? Are you a Slovene?
I love that she skips to Slovene. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, she cannot say the planet name. That was part of the whole thing in that episode. She cannot say Rax. 20
you can't
years
say
later,
it either.
20 years later, I cannot say that planet's name.
Raxacoricofallapatorius.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am desperately in debt until the day I die, but for a linguistics degree, but I can say Raxacoricofallapatorius.
And the culmination of that is Rose actually saying the planet name.
Yeah. But I like that, even though one of the last things that Christopher Eccleston does is to warn Rose that this is about to happen. It is very difficult as a concept. Because we know that Rose is already kind of catching feelings for the doctor. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, this guy that you've been traveling with, you've put your trust in, you've caught feelings for, and you get like 20 seconds of lead up of, I'm about to die, I'm going to change everything about me, but I'm still going to be me. And then all of a sudden he explodes. And he's David Tennant. Yeah, he's like a totally different dude.
I mean, it could have been worse. Just ask Perry and the Sixth Doctor when he's trying to freaking choke her.
Yeah, I mean, there have been weirder regenerations, but you do feel for Rose in that moment.
Yeah. Even if there wasn't any kind of romantic feelings, here's this person she sees as her friend is just dead. And here's this new man claiming to be him. She doesn't understand it. She's trying to understand it, and even later in the episode, she says the doctor's gone. He's not here anymore.
The thing is that one of the things where you feel bad for the doctor is when she finally grasps the concept of like, okay, this has actually happened. Okay, I'm finally getting the idea of regeneration. And she says, "Can you change back?" And he says, "Do you want me to?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "No." And you can see the look on his face is like,
do you not like this face? Do you not want to be with me anymore?
yeah, I mean, he's genuinely hurt. And then his next question to her is, do you want to go home? Like, can you not deal with me in this form? Is this too far for you?
And I do like her reaction. Like, do you want me to leave? And doctor says, no, I don't want you to leave. But if you want to leave, I'm not going to stop you.
And that's when we get the change from no more Barcelona, let's take you back home, so that you understand I'm serious. If you want out of this situation, you can have out. You know, it's your choice. I'm not forcing you to stay. Which, good for the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell how hurt he is that she might want to leave. That she might not be able to deal with him in a new form.
Mm-hmm.
But he is genuine in that he will not manipulate her into staying.
Which is a first for the doctor.
Yeah.
The
doctor has finally learned about consent. Good for the doctor. We are no longer kidnapping teachers and bringing them on a ride.
Or having, teachers, teenagers, young women. But he says, he's serious. I'll take you home. You can leave if you want. I don't want you to leave, but I'm not going to make you stay. And he says, I'll even make it a Christmas present. I'll take you to Christmas Eve. You could spend Christmas with your mom. And then it hits. The TARDIS starts shaking. The doctor starts convulsing. The regeneration has gone wrong. He's puking up regeneration energy.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is that he does that and it's a problem. But we've seen that happen since then and it hasn't been a problem.
Who knows?
I'm not saying that Doctor Who has to be the most consistent thing in the entire world, but a tiny bit of consistency maybe, please.
I mean, up until the revival, regeneration always looked different every time.
I mean, up until the revival, there was no such thing as canon, so like.
Yeah.
But yeah. If you're gonna try a little bit.
But he also gets erratic, which again is part of the course for regenerations, as the doctor tends to not be himself in the first few hours of his regeneration. He just snaps into a more aggressive personality. We gotta go faster. We're gonna rip through that vortex. Rose, I can't stop myself. Rose, stop me. Rose, let's go faster. Rose, help me, Rose. Imagine being Rose in that situation. This man, again, your friend just changed his face, is telling you he's still your friend, is asking you to help him while he's being erratic as all get out.
Yeah, and David Tennant being erratic is always fun.
It's a great introduction into all of this. And a great... Oh, one thing we forgot that will play into this episode is he goes through all of his little stuff with himself. He checks his wrist, and he realizes there's a joint loose in his wrist.
Yeah.
Which does play up, and he talks about, oh, I've got hair, I've got sideburns, and then rewatching this, he goes, I have a mole in the back of my shoulders. I love it. I love the mole. Rewatching that, that comes back. That's the thing that comes full circle. Oh. And the fact that it took me to rewatch this to realize, oh, that was a reference.
Yeah, it's a really obscure and strange reference, but it's, if you know, you know, go back and watch the giggle.
Yeah.
It is very interesting how much of the setup for Christmas Invasion is done in this episode. You know, this special. Because in the UK, everybody would be watching it.
It was,
you know, Children in Need is a massive thing in the UK. And even
thing.
if you don't watch the entirety of Children in Need, you're gonna tune in and you're gonna watch the Doctor Who thing if you're a Doctor Who fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Or you're going to skim it later on iPlayer until you find it, you know?
I mean, it was 2005. It was already over YouTube.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they were a bit more, it was a bit more difficult to find sometimes on things like that. I think it's safe to say that while the reboot under Christopher Eccleston was a bit of a hit in the US, it really did not hit massive until the David Tennant years.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, even now, David Tennant is the Doctor, for better or for worse.
It took a little bit because of the delay in being shown in the US. Unless you were a classic Doctor Who fan who was desperate to get a hold of the new episodes, it took a while for the new stuff to trickle over to the US, for it to find a home, to be aired, for the fandom to catch up, for, you know, for word to get around that it was actually good and that you should watch it, you know?
Yeah, because when it was airing on Sci-Fi, I think it was airing like Friday night, and even then it was kind of considered a death slot.
Yeah, and, you know, it took me a minute to kind of get into it and to hear other people who had watched it earlier to tell me that you need to be watching this. You know? So I watched the Eccleston stuff a little later, like when it came out on Sci-Fi. So I was a little bit behind some of my more enthusiastic friends. And definitely behind my friends in the UK who were already talking about it. And once my friends who were more into the classic series and they were like, you know, okay, no, you need to be watching this. Then I got into it at that point, but I wasn't really seeing so much of a resurgence at like conventions and stuff, you know? until David Tennant had taken over. And I think it was just because BBC was getting their act together and getting the episodes over in the US faster, and people were catching up faster, you know? And word was getting out that the series was good and worth watching, and, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not a shade to Christopher Eccleston. I'm just saying that in the US, due to rights issues and distribution issues, it took a while to catch on over here. Yeah. Whereas I think in the UK, it took off a lot faster.
I mean, it's BBC's own show. They're going to air it,
Yeah.
automatically. But to find find distribution in other countries, because a lot of people thought, oh, it's going to be on PBS in the States, and that's not what happened originally. It was, it took about 6 or so months before we finally get it on Sci-Fi, which at the time made sense. The science fiction channel should have the science fiction show. That was before they changed their name to Sci-Fi, but that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah.
But it made sense at the time. And then when BBC America really started getting its foot going, why not the BBC show on BBC America? Now, granted, Doctor Who did air on PBS for a bit, like 2 years after that original airing. And even some of the David Tennant episodes aired on the Disney Channel in the States, which is really weird to say now.
Yeah.
Kiki, I assume you watched this episode on Max, right?
I did.
I did not, because I watched this on the brand new Doctor Who New Who Collector's Edition box set, which I've gotten a few weeks ago. And I got it.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, and I got it because it was offering something that, as of right now, December 2023, is not available in the US. That is the new digitally remastered season 1 through 4, which just got released in the UK. You can buy season 1 through 4 digitally remastered. They made a big deal out of it. But as of now, as of December 2023, the only way you can get this in the States is to buy this big old box set, which I did, because I didn't have most of the episodes on Blu-ray, and I wanted most of the episodes on Blu-ray. And I must say, it looks good. If you are able to get it, do so. And I'm pretty sure they'll release the season 1 through 4 remastered box set by itself at some point. But for me, I couldn't wait. So I did watch this on the new digital remastered set, and it looks good. But enough about that. Let's get into that other part. Let's actually get into the Christmas invasion. Picking up where the Children Need Special left off. This is Tennant's first episode, and he's like unconscious for 2/3 of it. I had forgotten about that.
But you know what? He acts lying in a bed so well.
Like, this is really a Rose Tyler episode.
Well, the reason, I mean, yes, we wanted to do a Christmas episode. And, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Tennant's first episode, Tennant in the giggle, and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Lots of reasons why we wanted to do this episode. But let's be honest here. The reason we wanted to talk about this episode was we had been talking about the fact that we didn't really get to talk about Harriet Jones.
Oh, you're jumping right in there. Yeah, we did not do the Harriet Jones episodes when we did our retrospective. But yeah, let's talk about...
So, I know that you're like, oh, this is a Rose episode. This is not a Rose episode. This is a Harriet Jones episode.
So
Harriet Jones is the main character of this episode.
Harriet Jones, the new Prime Minister of the UK, the new Prime Minister of England. We first met her. We first met Harriet Jones with the Slovene.
Yeah, in Aliens of London in World War III, back with the Ninth Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just a backbencher MP, which, for those of you who don't know UK Parliament speak, is just like she represents a tiny area and she doesn't have much power, and she is not really well known in Parliament. She doesn't, she's not one of the major people. And they usually sit on the back rows in Parliament, and they don't get to say much, and they don't really have much sway over legislation, etc. She was representing a tiny place called Flydale North.
And kudos to the Doctor Who team. They actually created a website based on this fictional town for Harriet Jones. That they don't do that anymore, but I'm glad that they did it then.
Yeah, Doctor Who and Torchwood used to have like some of the best tie-in websites and like MySpace pages and all kinds of interesting stuff
that tied into the episodes and gave you a bigger backstory on certain aspects of the episodes. They don't do that now, and I kind of wish they did. But in an era of social media being more important, they'll just put it on Twitter. They'll put it on Facebook. They'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah. So the important thing about, and really the only thing that is important to this episode from that two-parter with the Ninth Doctor when she first met the Doctor and Rose is that after the crisis is over, as she's going out to speak to the media and tell them that the crisis is over, the Doctor turns to Rose and says, "Oh, now I remember why her name is so familiar to me. Harriet Jones is going to become Prime Minister of the UK. She is going to be elected for 3 consecutive terms as Prime Minister, and she is going to usher in a golden age for Britain." Okay? So we get the idea that this woman who is in that two-parter seen as kind of this, like,
nobody.
Yeah, she's a nobody. She's kind of a joke.
Nobody knows who she is. She has to constantly say who she is and and where she represents.
Yeah. But that she is going to end up being very important and be very good for the UK. Okay? Britain's golden age. The Doctor's exact words. Okay? So, this is our second meeting with Harriet Jones in the Christmas Invasion. And when Rose gets the Doctor into Jackie's apartment and, they get him in bed and, all snuggled up and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with him, Rose turns and sees Harriet Jones on the TV and she goes, "Hey, I know that woman." And Jackie says, "Yeah, you should know the Prime Minister. She just got elected, and I just got a raise, and people are saying this is the dawning of a golden age for Britain." So we know that in the context, Harriet Jones has just been elected in a landslide, she says.
Yes.
Okay, so the public put Harriet Jones as a prime minister in a landslide election, and this is the like right at the beginning of her term, maybe months into her term. Okay?
Again, I don't know how the UK voting system works, but it's Christmas. Can you educate
they
American?
don't have like a necessarily like
Traditional election?
traditional voting date, I don't think, like we do, in November kind of thing.
And it's also likely an emergency election because the prime minister was killed by the Saline.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure exactly the difference between the Slitheen and the election that Harriet Jones was elected in.
We're never told how long that.
Yeah,
that
we're never told exactly how long, but we do know that it's very early in her first term as prime minister. Okay? The way the timeline is supposed to work out according to the Ninth Doctor. Okay? Harriet Jones is at the beginning of her first, term. So that's important to remember for the context of this. And she is in charge when the Doctor's regeneration and the probe that the UK has now sent out, and it's one of those like Voyager probes. The UK has now sent it out as one of those, hey, we're going to do some scans, but also we've put that plaque in case aliens run across it to be like, hi, we're humans. This is what we look like, and this is where the Earth is, and here's some music, and
here's some blood.
Here's some blood, and here's a wheat seed and a sample of water, and all kinds of stuff. And it gets intercepted by the Sycorax. And I love the Sycorax because their name is a Shakespeare reference. Sycorax was the mother of Caliban in The Tempest. Later on, when the 10th Doctor meets Shakespeare, he will make a joke when he sees like a skull lying somewhere that the skull reminds him of a Sycorax. And Shakespeare says, "Oh, what a wonderful word." And so that is supposedly the like where Shakespeare gets the word, but
I mean, does he really understand the gravity of the situation?
I don't know if he understands the gravity of the situation, but I like the idea that it's multiple things working together that cause this situation.
And also, the Doctor is still puking up regeneration energy, which is going into the atmosphere and going out into space, which also summons the Sycorax. The Sycorax is following this energy signature to Earth.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of my point, is that like it's not just one thing or the other. The Sycorax may have missed the probe. Or the Sycorax may have missed the regeneration energy, or the, whatever. But the fact that all of these things were happening at the same time is kind of just a perfect stew of, like, oopsie.
One of my favorite things about the Sycorax is that it's their first transmission and how it's explained is such a deep cut reference. You have to be a hardcore Whovian to understand the reference. Because it's a reference to the Max Headroom incident. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, in the 1980s, early 1980s, in Chicago, and I know this because I do live in Chicago, during a PBS airing of The Horror of Fang Rock. During the airing of the episode, a bunch of local people hijack the transmission signal of PBS Chicago affiliate and broadcasted themselves. One of them is wearing a Max Headroom mask and doing all of these goofy things. And we kind of get a reference to that in this episode with the pirate broadcast and with the explanation that it's an idiot with a rubber mask. That is such a deep cut reference. And that you have to be like hardcore into the fandom to understand that reference.
Yeah. And, the best thing about that is to this day, nobody knows who did that.
Yeah, no one knows who did it.
Yeah, it's like
40 years later, no one knows.
It is really, really fascinating. Like, there are lots of really cool deep dives on YouTube. If you don't know about the Max Headroom incident, go look it up, because it's really creepy in a way.
Yeah,
for something so bizarrely innocuous.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be the person who was recording the Horror of Fang Rock that night, but that videotape is floating all over YouTube now of this incident.
Yeah, and the thing is that they didn't just break in one time. They broke into other things, including into like a football game.
The news.
And, the news and stuff. So, but it just happened to be that, like, the first people record Doctor Who because, geeks are like that. So that's the one we have the most context for. And that you see the most often is that particular one, because more people were recording that. And you have the second most recorded one was the football game one. The one that's slightly rarer to find was when they broke into the news. But yeah, it's fascinating because nobody to this day knows who did it, although there are some really good theories out there. But it's fascinating that like somebody did that over the course of like 2 days, I think, or maybe 3, and then they didn't do it anymore, and nobody ever caught them, and nobody ever took credit for it, and it's been 40 years.
But that shows you how much of a super fan Russell T Davies is. That he's going to reference that in his Christmas special.
Yeah. And also, it's not even a thing that happened in the UK. It's like a weird piece of tangentially related Doctor Who ephemera from another country.
One city in another country.
Yeah, one city, and not even most American Doctor Who fans.
Just Chicago.
Were really into, yeah. Or really hardcore Max Headroom fans.
Yeah.
Because that's how I heard about it.
Yeah. So back to the episode, though. So yeah, you mentioned this being a Harriet Jones episode. Yeah, most of this episode does focus on Harriet Jones. The Doctor is incapacitated. The Harriet Jones is trying to find help, asking people, has anyone seen the Doctor? As has no one seen the Doctor. He hasn't shown up. We don't know what's going to happen. Well, if these aliens get hostile, we need to defend ourselves. Harriet Jones walks up to a unit soldier. I don't know if this is the first reference to unit in the modern era, but he's wearing a military uniform. His bag says unit on it. So it's a unit soldier. She walks up to the unit soldier and says, okay, I'm not supposed to know about this, but I know about it anyway. Can we get Torchwood on the line, on standby, in case these aliens get hostile? And this is the first mention of Torchwood in the modern era. The year-long storyline of Torchwood that would eventually lead to the spinoff. Because at this time, the Russell T Davies era had a lot of, we're going to drop this word, this phrase all through the season. It's going to culminate at the end. Season 1 was Bad Wolf. Season 2 was Torchwood. Season 3 was Mr. Saxton. So here we are with our first mention of Torchwood. And who knew at that point how much Torchwood would mean to the fandom and to the show?
I really like how it starts out with, like, get Torchwood on the line. They just lost a third of their staff. And then, of course, we find out later with Torchwood, and you're like, well, Torchwood's like, what, like 5 people?
I mean, we would get a whole big building of Torchwood at the end of the season. Most of them were killed by Cybermen, but...
Well, yeah, I guess at this point, it's like a whole big building, and then, like, after that, it's 5 people.
Yeah. So that gives the impression that Captain Jack is still here somewhere. The future Captain Jack, after just being left on Satellite 5 by the Doctor.
Well, the thing is that Jack is mentioned in the Children in Need special. We kind of glossed over that.
But yeah, when he starts convulsing and puking up regeneration energy, he says, let's go back, let's go get Captain Jack to fix this. And the Doctor says, no, Captain Jack has a bigger mission. He's got to rebuild the Earth. Which we find out is a lie. Is a lie that the Doctor is telling Rose because he knows what Jack is. And he wants Jack nowhere near the TARDIS.
I find it interesting that they use the TARDIS translation circuit as a measure of if the Doctor's okay.
I've mentioned this before, but there is a symbiotic relationship between the Doctor and the TARDIS. If one of them is out of commission, the other isn't really going to work so well. As Rose says in the episode, the Doctor completes the circuit, and he's out of commission.
They broadcast a bit of the Sycorax transmission, of course, and Rose says that she should be able to understand it because the TARDIS translates in her head. And that since she can't understand it, that means that something is very wrong. And that must mean that the Doctor is part of that somehow. And that, of course, carries through the episode.
So, yeah, the only translation we get is from, I assume this is UNIT.
You can see the UNIT logos on the wall behind them when they're walking around. So yeah, we are definitely in UNIT headquarters underground. Also, they are in the Tower of London, which is the old UNIT headquarters up until the new show gave us UNIT Avengers Tower.
Yeah.
Your mileage on whether you approve of that may vary.
So yeah, I mean, the UNIT obviously would know who the Doctor is, and his knowledge of alien races probably helped them develop an alien translator. So the only translations we get are from the UNIT translator.
I do like that once they have enough to translate the Sycorax language, it's like Sycorax strong, Sycorax mighty, Sycorax rock. And then everybody looks at him and he's like, as in the modern sense, like they rock. That made me laugh at the time, and it still makes me laugh now, and I don't know why.
The Doctor programmed that. You know the Doctor programmed that.
But I just like that that's how the Sycorax, introduce themselves. Like,
surrender your planet or they will die. And we find out what they are is 1/3 of the Earth's population. Using that blood sample that's on the satellite, as the doctor would call it, blood control. You can...
Yeah.
They are
A positive blood.
Yeah. Anyone with A positive blood is forced to walk up to any kind of ledge on any building and just stay there. And that's the threat. Is that we will kill 1/3 of your population if you do not surrender your planet to us.
Yeah, and once, skipping ahead again here, because again, Harriet Jones's episode, once the threat is made and 1/3 of the world is standing on some ledge somewhere, including the royal family, it turns out. Mm-hmm. The Sycorax say, like, okay, who speaks for the planet? And Harriet Jones is like, well, I guess that's gonna be me.
But I do like before that, she says, send a message to the Sycorax that on this planet, today is a day of peace, and we extend that peace to you. Which seems to be denied.
Well, but I like the second half of that. Mm-hmm. We're downplaying the badassery of Harriet Jones. Mm-hmm. Because that is not her entire message. Today is a day of peace on planet Earth. We extend that peace to the Sycorax. But also know that planet Earth is armed and we do not surrender. I mean, that second part is freaking badass. And we cannot underestimate that. Mm-hmm. Like, there is something to be said for, hey, we are not going to start this fight. But, dear Sycorax, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Mm. And that's Harriet Jones's whole point. Like, I do not want to fight you, but do not think I'm not prepared. That is a very Doctor Who thing. I'm just gonna say. Mm. Like, most of the doctors are, that's kind of their code of conduct. I very much want to deal with this peacefully, but if you push me,
I will end you.
That is a very Doctor code of conduct there. And to see Harriet Jones using it, she's got no backup. But that's her message. Mm-hmm. And when the Sycorax, they pull their little blood stunt and they go like, okay, who speaks for the planet? And Harriet Jones just steps the hell up. Like, she doesn't even contact the other world leaders. She's just like, which I kind of guess is a very British thing to do, if we're being honest with ourselves.
I mean, it's an American thing to do too.
I mean, I kind of wonder if the American president had A positive blood. Otherwise, there may have been like a bit of a fight. Like, okay, so this woman and that dude over there both say they speak for the planet. Which one is telling the truth?
I'm not gonna let this, derogatory word for a British person that begins with an L that I will not say, is thinking she's more than me. I'm gonna wait. Now I have to go on the roof now.
It's really interesting that, like, they get up there, and of course it's the guy who sent the probe who put the blood sample on there, and it's like the military general or whatever.
Yeah, but you have the scientist, the general, the translator, and Harriet Jones.
Yeah, and the four of them get get teleported up to the Sycorax ship, and the scientist is all like, hey, it's my fault and everything, and they kill him. And then the general...
Yeah, he even says, hey, we are children compared to you in terms of the stars. Just give us a chance to grow, and we can do this together. You're trying to broker some peace, Yeah, and he gets killed.
Yeah, and then, of course, the general is like, hey, even aliens have to have, like, rules of warfare. You just killed a prisoner in your control. That's against every rule of warfare we have on Earth, how dare you? And they kill him. But I do like that Harriet Jones knows to keep her cool. I mean, it's awful what had just happened, but she is able to maintain her cool in the face of, the murder of two of her people in front of her.
I mean, if she had lost her cool, she'd be dead.
Yeah, and I mean, compare that to the Harriet Jones that we saw in the two-parter with the Ninth Doctor.
Yeah.
She's come a long way in that.
And as all this is happening, Mickey, Rose, and Jackie have moved the Doctor to the TARDIS. They can't work the TARDIS, but they figure it's the safest place to be while the end of the world is happening.
And they know that, like, they can't fly the TARDIS anywhere. They can't wake the Doctor up or anything. So they're just gonna lock the door of the TARDIS, take as much food in there as they can, and just sit and wait and hope something happens.
Which is really weird considering the TARDIS has food replicators.
Yeah, but you know how it is.
Yeah.
It probably makes Jackie feel better to be like, well, I'll bring food and do cooking. And Rose is like, they have food synthesizers in the TARDIS. And Jackie's probably like, yeah, but it's not as good as Mom's home cooking,
And as the Doctor would say in the Children Need Special, well, having eaten your mother's cooking.
Yeah. So yeah, they're all just kind of sitting there waiting, and of course Jackie goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go get another, bunch of food and stuff from there," and Rose, trying to figure out how to turn the TV on in the TARDIS, accidentally sends a distress signal or something, and
the Sycorax picked up. They detect what they know it by name. They know it as the blue box.
Yeah. I think it's just the I think it's just that the translation software doesn't recognize TARDIS or whatever in Sycorax,
Mm-hmm.
But when Rose stumbles out and gets caught, they decide, she has the TARDIS. She speaks for humanity.
She must be the Doctor. And she even said it. Someone has to be the Doctor if he's not going to be the Doctor.
But I like Rose trying to bluff her way out of it.
Just using all of the alien words she's learned over the past season. Just jumbled them up. They don't mean anything the way she says it. And the Sycorax kind of see right through it. But her saying, according to the Shadow Proclamation of the Council of the Gelf and the Council of the Slavine, I order you away from this planet in the name of the Daleks. She tries, and the Sycorax laugh at her stolen words that mean nothing to us. But as this is happening, Mickey hears Rose scream, drops the food he has in his hand, including the tea that Jackie had made in a thermos, which drips on the TARDIS console, turns the TARDIS into a humidifier. Because the tea falls onto the TARDIS machinery, which burns it, which turns it into vapor, which the Doctor breathes in. If that's not a humidifier, I don't know what is. And as this is happening, as the Sycorax is just gloating and saying what they're going to do to the planet, as the translator is translating what he's saying, it slowly turns into English. And it's very funny because the Sycorax leader and the translator are saying the same thing at the same time in English before the translator figures out what's way. He's speaking English.
And I love how the Sycorax leader is disgusted by the suggestion that he would speak English.
How dare I would never speak Earth tongues.
Yeah.
I speak only Sycorax language.
Yeah. But I love how the one thing I really like from this episode is when Rose goes, but if I'm hearing English, that means it's being translated, and that means, and then there's just that like dramatic turn as everybody turns back towards the TARDIS, and the camera zooms in, and the doors open, and there's David Tennant standing there in his pajamas, like, miss me?
And I mean, it's a gag in this episode, but apparently these are Jackie's boyfriend's pajamas.
Yeah, Jackie's boyfriend who keeps fruit in the pockets of his dressing gown.
He gets hungry.
In his sleep, sometimes.
And we never see who this boyfriend is, but just on the way Rose reacts, she doesn't like the guy. Like, you're not still seeing that guy, are you? Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's apparently like the grocer or something that is down the street.
That's one way to get free groceries.
Yeah, well, she said she knew he was flirting with her when he started delivering to her house, which is apparently not a normal thing.
In 2005.
Well, I mean, now you'd have just like a random, DoorDasher or something.
Yeah, I mean, I have an app on my phone. I can order groceries anytime I want.
Not a grocer. He works at a fruit stall. So that's why the fruit is always in his dressing gown. I had missed that.
But the point stands that he was flirting with her. He's giving her free fruit. Don't give free fruit. Don't look free fruit in the mouth, as it were.
Yeah. The funny thing is that there is a point in this episode that it revolves around the Doctor finding a Satsuma in the pocket. And at the time this aired, I did not know what a Satsuma was. But in the years since, a Satsuma farm has opened up in my town. And so now there is like a giant Satsuma farm / stand in my town that sells to like the entire area.
And apparently this is some sort of, again, dumb American here. It's a reference to a British Christmas tradition.
Maybe, I don't know.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Editor Tuesday, back once again, and I did look this up after we got done recording, and yeah, the Satsuma is a Christmas tradition dating all the way back to the historical St. Nicholas. There's a story of a man struggling to find husbands for his daughters because he couldn't pay the dowry. St. Nicholas took bags of gold and slid them down the chimney, landing in the girls' stockings that were warming by the fireplace. And landing in the stockings, And there you go. The Satsuma is to represent the bags of gold in the stockings. There's your context. And, yeah.
Now, back to our show.
But the point is, the Sycorax see the Doctor as Earth's champion. And the Sycorax leader,
well, the thing is that we kind of skipped over the bit about the first thing the Doctor does is that he talks about he doesn't know what kind of man he is yet because he's just regenerated. And the first thing he has to figure out is if he sees a giant threatening button that must never ever be pushed, is he going to push it? Yes, he is.
The large candy-like button.
Yeah, and of course everybody is like, oh, you just killed them. And then the Doctor's like, I don't know, Sycorax leader. What do you think? Did I just kill them? And I love the Sycorax leader, like, trying to play it off. Like, we have allowed them to live for now. And the Sycorax leader being like, yeah, you allowed them to live because you never had the ability to kill them anyway. You know.
So, yeah, we find out that blood control is essentially hypnosis. You can influence them, but you can't make them do something that they don't want to do.
Yeah,
such as jumping off a building.
Yeah, and he says specifically that it's like in the way of hypnosis, you know, you can hypnotize somebody to cluck like a chicken or sing like Elvis, but you can't hypnotize them to death because people's survival instinct is too strong. So you can use the blood control to make them climb up to a height and stand there, but if you were to give the command to jump, the people, it would break the control because, you know, they're not going to do that. So the Doctor just hits the button and it insta control. But we do get our first our first instance of one of David Tennant's big calling cards. Licking things what you should not be licking.
Stop licking things, Doctor.
I mean, and this is not just a Doctor Who thing. If you are familiar with David Tennant's oeuvre of work, David Tennant is constantly licking things what ought not be licked. And sometimes just licking things what ought be licked, because, you know, a lot of times he's like eating things or, you know, whatever. But
yeah. Oh, when that happened, I was like, oh, David, why you gotta be like this?
But yeah, I don't know what it is about him, but in like every project he's ever been in, it is the tongue thing. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It like, what's the line from Mulan? Like, dragon, a lizard, I don't do the tongue thing.
Yeah.
He's like, David Tennant is like part lizard, I'm sure. Because no matter what he's in, he's finding a way to do something weird or off-putting with his tongue.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I would just like if like one of his characters, and it doesn't have to be Doctor Who, but just one of his characters just licks something and just dies.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that when he took over as the Doctor immediately began tasting things to identify it, which was not a thing the Doctor really did before. That was not a common thing for the Doctor.
The closest we would get is sniffing the air.
Yeah.
The air smells like Earth in 1970 something. You can tell that by the air. Yes, not a lot of pollution.
Yeah, but for some reason, he started using that as just a thing the Doctor can do, is putting random things in his mouth and identifying them. And it starts here, where he licks the blood in the blood control machine and identifies it as human blood, A positive, with a little too much iron. Yeah. And that is the first time we see his Doctor do that, and it continues all the way through the 10th Doctor, and then again with the 14th Doctor.
Yep.
It happens again with the 14th Doctor in the new specials. So it has survived 2 iterations of David Tennant Doctors. But if you watch other things, he does it in Good Omens. His Harry Potter character had a weird thing, and I was like, is that in the books? No, it's not in the books. I don't know why he does it there. It's like,
I don't know if he did it in Jessica Jones or Broadchurch.
I don't remember it so much in Broadchurch, although I think he does eat a lot of stuff. And I think in Jessica Jones there is a scene or two where he does something weird that I noticed that I was like, oh, there it is. I feel grounded now. But it does happen in basically everything he's in. Like, I think you physically have to stop him from doing it. But anyway, once he kind of sets that the blood control is, a little bit of hokum, then we get to the point where he's like, okay, I challenge you to one-on-one combat for the fate of the planet. And then we get an old Doctor Who staple, which is a sword fight, which was kind of 4's thing.
3.
But 4 did it too, because Legopolis, there's a massive sword fight in Legopolis.
And 3 did a sword fight with the Master.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've had it over a couple of Doctors. I remember the ones from 4 more, because there's that really funny thing where Tom Baker is trying to fence and manipulate the scarf, because he keeps tripping over the scarf. It wasn't Legopolis in that one. It was a different episode. But there is a great bit where Tom Baker is fencing with somebody, and I forget, but it's one of the points where the scarf was at its longest, and he's constantly fighting with the scarf.
Well, we've referenced 2 4th Doctor episodes in this podcast already.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's incredible, but yeah, so
it does start a trend of the Doctor making pop culture references. As he mentions, these people, they don't know about the stars yet. And then he quotes The Lion King, which is extra funny now that Doctor Who is Disney, or airing on Disney.
Yeah. It is, it's really funny, because I love how when he started going into that, do you remember how hard you laughed when you first saw it? When you realized what he was doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, are they even going to acknowledge that this is the Lion King? And then he just stops and goes, no, wait, that's the Lion King.
It's a great sword fight, too.
It's really well done as a sword fight. I like it.
I don't know how much of this was actually David Tennant and how much was a stuntman, a sword fighter.
I mean, I'm sure part of it was, but I mean, David Tennant's done enough Shakespeare. He has to have some stage combat in him.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we get the
handy spare hand.
Yeah, this is where we get the origin of, the eventual Meta-Crisis Doctor, Handmaid Doctor, that kind of stuff. And we've talked about that before.
But yeah, again, it gets referenced in the Children in Need special, as he says he has a loose joint in his wrist. It gets cut off here, falls to the ground, which is found by Captain Jack to become his doctor detector, which stays on the TARDIS, which eventually becomes the Metacrisis Doctor, leading into the Dr. Donna. We talked about that. Leads into the 60th anniversary. You're all caught up.
But I like the bit where he's like, oh, I know what kind of guy I am. I'm a lucky guy because
he has enough leftover regeneration energy to grow a new hand.
Yeah, and we watch him, grow the new hand, and then Rose throws him a new sword, and we get, yay, sword fight, and he disarms the Sycorax leader, and he says, I'll spare your life if you promise to never ever come back, and,
swear on your life, swear on the lives of your people.
The blood of your people.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, the blood.
Well, considering he used the blood of Earthlings.
Yeah, but I mean, I like the callback,
Yeah. We get a nice reference here as he puts his robe back on, and he says, I like the robe. Very Arthur Dent. And you mentioned something off mic. You want to mention that now?
Yeah, so we, of course, this wasn't, we didn't know what would come in the future when this was filmed, of course. But everybody knows who Georgia Tennant's father is, of course, being Peter Davison. But kind of lesser known is who Georgia Tennant's mom is. And her mom is an actress named Sandra Dickinson. And if you don't recognize the name right off the bat, you may realize that you may recognize her if you watched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series from like the 80s. Because she was Trillian on that series. A lot of people don't realize that Georgia Tennant is, has a little more sci-fi cred than a lot of people realize, because her father is Doctor Who and her mother is Trillian.
So it's very funny that he made a Hitchhiker's reference in this scene.
Yeah.
Little did he know.
Yeah, little did any of us know.
And he mentions that he met Arthur Dent. And it's very odd. Does he mean he met the actor? Or did he meet the actual person? Is this actually the second Earth?
What I like I like to think that since Douglas Adams did write for Doctor Who, that they are making Hitchhiker's Guide somehow canon to Doctor Who.
I mean, he was on the spaceship Titanic.
Yeah. So
you fill in the blank there.
Yeah.
Douglas Adams fans go wild.
But I do think that this has one of the kind of best endings for a regeneration episode. Because, he makes the Sycorax leader swear, and I guess the Sycorax don't put any stock in, promises. Because Sycorax leader gets up and immediately tries to stab the doctor in the back, and the doctor throws the Satsuma and hits a button and makes the Sycorax leader fall to his death. And the doctor, we get the first bit of that oncoming storm part of the 10th Doctor that we would get occasionally.
Yep.
When he just says, no second chances, I'm that sort of man.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, the first time I saw that, I was like, ooh, that makes your blood run cold.
He will give you the chance to walk away once. If you don't, well, he's not giving it to you twice.
And then he goes out and he gives that amazing speech about, I banish you from Earth for all time, and when you go out and you tell people about the Earth and how awesome it is, remember to tell them it is defended. And then we get the part of the episode that was why we wanted to talk about this episode. Because honestly, we've talked about everything in this episode before.
Yeah.
We've talked about all the characters and everything, but this kind of final-ish scene of plot, we get the after bit where it's like, oh, what costume am I gonna wear? Let's sit down and have Christmas and figure out if Rose is gonna stay in the TARDIS and whatever, which it's like, meh, that's tacked on at the end. We don't really care. But the final bit of plot for this episode is the reason we wanted to talk about this episode.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, Harriet Jones is calling in Torchwood to be on standby in case the Sycorax get hostile. And after the threat is passed, the translator who gets a message to and relays it to Harriet Jones saying, hey, Torchwood is ready. All you have to do is say the word. And she looks at the doctor with Rose and Jackie and Mickey, and they're all happy and they're all hugging. She looks back at her translator. Yeah, do it. And Torchwood has somehow made London the Death Star. Because all of these lasers pop up all over London, convening in the center and blasting a big old laser right at the Sycorax ship. It's the Death Star. It's the Death Star laser. You guys know what I'm talking about. And destroys the Sycorax ship. And the Doctor is horrified at this. How could you do this? They were leaving. They had surrendered. They were no longer a threat. But Harriet Jones actually makes a valid point here. Number one, yes, they are running away, but who knows what they'll tell other races among the stars. Who knows that they'll tell other races to come to Earth. We might have another alien invasion on our hands. And you're not going to be here for it. You don't stay, Doctor. What do? You come here, you do a thing, and then you're off. Who knows when you're coming back? I need to look after my people, and I have to think of the best interests of my people and defend this world. Harriet Jones is not wrong.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that the Sycorax, and we just said it. I mean, we just said it. The Sycorax leader just proved what? That they don't put any stock in promises.
They are not beings of their word.
Now, maybe it was that one guy. Maybe the Sycorax leader was just a douche. But we don't know. And the thing is that neither did Harriet Jones. Maybe the Doctor knows. Maybe the Doctor knows that, oh, that one guy broke, the most sacred rules of the Sycorax or whatever. But we don't know. And we have just as much information as Harriet Jones. Okay? She just watched a guy swear on the blood of his people that the earth was safe from them, and then try to stab a dude in the back.
He just saw the same person kill 2 innocent people, 2 of his own prisoners, for no reason.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I hate to say it, but if I'm Harriet Jones, maybe I'm doing the same thing, because it's basically luck that the doctor showed up when he did, because Harriet Jones had been through 95% of that crisis by herself.
She even went on television saying, if any of you know the doctor, or if you're the doctor, please help us, and he didn't show up.
Rose walked out of the TARDIS and said, the doctor is gone, he is not coming to help us, we are on our own. She walked out of the TARDIS and said that. Okay? The fact that he showed up miraculously at the end, great. But Harriet Jones had just been through a situation where the TARDIS showed up without the doctor, as far as she knew. The doctor's companion walked out and said, nope, no doctor anymore. Just us. And, you know, flash forward ahead, we go through another situation where, like, yeah, basically, the doctor doesn't show up either. And it's a bunch of humans having to fend for themselves. And who shows the hell up for that?
Harriet
Jones. Yeah.
Sacrificing herself.
Yeah.
For Earth.
But here's the thing. So Harriet Jones uses this weapon to destroy the Sycorax, and the doctor's like, they were going away. They were no threat to you anymore, which we don't know. Thank you, doctor. And then Harriet Jones lays out the, like, excuse me, you're not always here. Earth needs a backup plan for when the doctor doesn't show up. It's not like we just have, like, an emergency doctor signal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not
never
Batman.
Stays. Yeah, and even after the threat is done, he doesn't stay. He just leaves.
And he just told her, because she's like, how many more are out there? Like the Sycorax. And he's like, oh, you know, about a gajillion-y, and they all know Earth is here now. So, I mean, does that sound safe to you?
That's shocking. Imagine you're this one person, one world leader who's already lived through one alien invasion that successfully got covered up, and a second one that no one can cover up.
Yeah. She even says there's an act of parliament banning my memoirs.
Yeah.
Because they're not allowing people to know that, you know, aliens exist.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that, you know, people are going to know aliens exist now because, you know.
Which itself gets retconned later, but it's Doctor Who.
Yeah. Doctor Who cannot quite figure out if people know whether or not aliens exist. Which is very confusing. Just figure out whether people know aliens exist or not, Doctor Who. That'd be great.
Earth sees a Dalek. They run. And then a few years later, here's another Dalek. What is this thing? A few years later, another Dalek. What is this thing?
Yeah, I mean, ow, my brain. Just stick to one thing or the other. That's not even like minutia of canon. Just, do these people know aliens exist?
Yeah, they can never get their
Yeah.
they can never decide. But back to Harriet Jones.
Yeah. So the Doctor gets so mad at her that he does what is possibly the worst thing that the Doctor has done, like, in the context of New Who. Like, yes, okay, before we pick up his story in New Who, he's doing, like, genocides and stuff, and that's awful. But this might be one of the worser things he does in New Who.
Let's backtrack a bit to what you said at the beginning of this podcast. Harriet Jones, as far as the Doctor himself said, is meant to lead England, the United Kingdom, a pre-Brexit United Kingdom at that, into a golden age, serve 3 consecutive terms as Prime Minister, and is going to make the UK better.
She is going to improve the life standard for everyone in the UK. Somehow. We don't know.
As you said earlier, Jackie got a raise. Everyone got a raise. Everyone is getting paid more, and Harriet Jones has only been in office a few months.
Yeah, I mean, they are already calling it a golden age, and she is right at the beginning of her first term. Imagine what this woman is doing in 3 terms.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, terms for Prime Minister in the UK are not set like they are in the US for our US, people. It's not like you serve for 4 years and then you're up for election. Okay? So we do not know how long Harriet Jones is actually originally meant to serve as Prime Minister. Okay?
And judging by her own policies, by the few times we've seen her already, she is quite possibly the most progressive Prime Minister in UK history.
I mean, we don't know exactly what she was going to do. We just know that the Doctor himself was considering her a force for good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The Doctor sees her do one thing where she stood up against him and said, "Look, I made a hard choice because you are not always going to be around." Okay? And she's not entirely wrong.
And she's not backing down. She stares the Doctor in the eyes. I made the right choice.
And the Doctor says, basically, like, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? I can bring down your administration with one word. And she challenges him.
No, you can't.
This badass biatch challenges him. You are the most amazing man I have ever met, but I do not think even you are capable of that.
And he says no. Not one word. Just 6. 6 words. I can take you down.
Don't you think she looks tired? The Doctor. The David Tennant Doctor on top of everything. He walks over and as basically his first act as Doctor, scuttles Britain's golden age with the power of sexism.
His ego was challenged. And the Doctor doesn't like when any incarnation of the Doctor, does not like when their ego is challenged. And I'm counting Jodie Whittaker in this as well.
Yeah, I mean, her incarnation had that too. But, and I mean, she used the power of racism to take down the Master, and I was against that.
Oh, if we ever get around to that episode.
Yeah, but, and I mean, if you don't believe me, ask yourself if you think that is a believable storyline if Harriet Jones is Harry Jones. If that is a man
that
as a prime minister.
That challenged the doctor on that level.
And the doctor says, I can bring you down with 6 words. And the 6 words are, don't you think he looks tired? Is it a believable story that within 24 hours, that man is facing a vote of no confidence that brings him down as prime minister?
Okay, I'm going to get political here. And I don't like getting political on my podcast because it's not a political podcast. Joe Biden. How many people call this man Sleepy Joe? His entire presidential run, he's been called Sleepy Joe. Not one vote of no confidence. Yes, they're trying to impeach him. But his own political party are not going up against him saying this man has not the mental faculties or the physical faculties to be president. But for Harriet Jones, she's a woman and she's tired. A vote of no confidence.
And if you're talking about U.S. politics, you know,
when Hillary Clinton was running for president.
Yeah, just look at when Hillary Clinton was running for president and how many people talked about, like, oh, what do you think her health is like and everything. And, I mean, say what you want about anybody's policy. That is fair game. Okay?
You don't have to like the current people in charge. You don't have to.
But the difference in the way that it is discussed is very much a marker of how we treat men and women in the same position. And the fact that this was the plot point that they used to bring down Harriet Jones still angers me. Because,
and this was a Russell T. Davis written episode.
Yeah, I mean, he is credited as the only writer.
Now, granted, there's already been talks about his questionable choices of words in the 3 new specials. So that's nothing new. That's nothing new.
Yeah.
But
the thing is that what happened to Harriet Jones? And the fact that the doctor would so flippantly change the timeline. Because here's the thing. If she is meant to become prime minister, and she is meant to herald in the golden age of the UK and all that kind of stuff, then wouldn't this action already be part of that?
This is the first, I just thought of this. This is the first instance of Time Lord victorious.
It kind of is, yeah. It's just such a, I don't know, it's so annoying to me that the doctor never gets his comeuppance for this.
And this leads to so much problems in the show. In the world of Doctor Who, this one act sets up so many problems that lead up into the rest of the series. Because Harriet Jones's vote is voted out, no confidence, which leaves a power vacuum that leaves a rookie politician named Harold Saxton to suddenly rise up the ranks and become prime minister. Who's Harold Saxton? Oh yeah, the Master.
Yeah,
so because of this one incident, the Doctor having an ego check directly leads to the Master becoming prime minister and all of that damage that comes from it. And the Doctor never faces repercussions for that. Not even in the episode, not even the dialogue. It's not even insinuated that this is his fault.
Yeah, and the thing is that, while we're on Harriet Jones, I mean, they directly say in the Sound of Drums, okay, that Harold Saxon shows up right after Harriet Jones gets voted out. He's not there, and then he shows up in the power vacuum created by Harriet Jones being removed as prime minister. And why did that happen? Maybe because the timeline is changed in a way it shouldn't have been. Mm-hmm. And a Time Lord would know how to capitalize on that.
Yep.
But I have to say that as much as I am mad about the way Harriet Jones went down as prime minister, one of the best things to me about Harriet Jones is that she never apologized for what she did. And she went basically underground, and we find out in Stolen Earth that she went and created
the subwave network.
Yeah, the subwave network, that's what it's called. She went and created this subwave network to connect all the people who knew about the Doctor that would be capable of coming together and possibly saving the Earth in case the Doctor didn't show up.
The Doctor's Secret Army, she called it.
Yeah. And so when the Daleks showed up and the Doctor wasn't there, in that way to protect them, she was able to connect, Torchwood
Sarah Jane Smith, Torchwood.
Yeah.
Martha Jones and Unit, yeah.
And make them into the network that was able to, yes, okay, the Doctor was kind of there, but, she was able to rally the troops when the Doctor couldn't, because she never gave up on the idea of one day the Doctor's not going to be here and we're going to need somebody to step up. And so right. Even though the Doctor ruined her life and arguably all of the UK politically, she was like, screw it. I know my nation and my planet needs protecting, so I'm going to keep on keeping on and do the work, even if I don't get the credit for it, even if I don't have the resources for it. This chick was badass from start to finish, and the Doctor never apologized for what he did to her. And, like, ugh. A lot of people who were, like, with the Doctor on it were like, well, the Doctor is just supposed to be, like, anti-war in general. Like, completely anti-violence. And I'm like, but is he, though? He just did his no second chances. But when Harriet Jones does her no second chances, we ruin not only her life, but the entire golden age of Britain. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I can't get over. Like, it's one thing to be mad at Harriet Jones, but you are mad at her for one action versus the knowledge that she is going to improve the lives of an entire nation. And we don't know what she does to bring about the quote-unquote golden age.
But it's good enough that the Doctor sees, like you said, sees Harriet Jones as a force for good. Let her cook, as the kids say.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we already know Jackie's getting a raise and stuff, and, like, was she pulling people out of poverty? Was she ending, like, a housing crisis? Was she, like, more funding to the NHS? Like, what is she doing that's leading a golden age? Maybe Earth was more peaceful among itself. We don't know.
We'll never know.
We will never know because of the Doctor. Because the Doctor had a hissy fit. I have so much respect for Harriet Jones. And this has been, like, the one, like, real thing about this version of the Doctor that has stuck in my craw all these years.
And then it goes directly into Song for 10. This happy-go-lucky, well, I woke up today.
And it's playing over Harriet Jones being like, I don't know where you're getting rumors about my health. Stop it. And the Doctor just being like, yep, well, I did a good thing there. Like, no, stop playing the happy music. You just ruined that woman's life.
Harriet Jones did nothing wrong. I'll say it. Harriet Jones did nothing wrong.
Justice for Harriet Jones.
Yeah. I want to make the mention here. You mentioned this when we first talked about David Tennant. When he's getting his outfit, the scarf.
Yeah, that scarf he wears. I forget if it was like his aunt or his grandma or somebody, but some female relative of his knitted him that little scarf that he's wearing at one point when he was a kid. That was his
Fourth
Doctor cosplay scarf that he ran around as a little kid being like, I'm Doctor Who.
That's the Christmas invasion. I'm glad Doctor Who's coming back to Christmas. I'm looking forward to the new special, the first full adventure of Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. Very looking forward to it. And what this new era of Doctor Who will become as we, yeah. So let's move on to next week. Is our actual Christmas episode. Next week the next episode will release on Christmas Day. And we're going to do a classic Christmas movie, Miracle on 34th Street. The original, 1947. So come back next week for Miracle on 34th Street, our Christmas Day episode. And we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
We are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, at Rewatch the Magic. And new episodes are available every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it. Don't let the magic stop here. Join our conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic. Podcasts are fun,
but there's work to be done.
We encourage you to get involved. Here are some organizations we support.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for the constitutional rights of all Americans. Find them at aclu.org.
The National Network of Abortion Funds helps people find access to safe abortion services. Their site is abortionfunds.org.
The Trevor Project provides a 24/7 crisis helpline for LGBTQ youth and education services for schools on LGBTQ issues. They can be found at thetrevorproject.org.
Or find a way to help in your area.